Jamaica just started taxing sweet drinks by the grams of sugar, and the politicians celebrating this law have absolutely no idea that the real blood sugar crisis in the Caribbean is sitting on your dinner plate, not in your glass. So, today we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most prominent health issues in the Caribbean. And I promise you that by the end of this video, you are going to look at your drink ritual in a completely different way. Now, not because I want to take away your local juices, but because what you do not know about those drinks is genuinely affecting your health. So let's start with the big picture. Diabetes rates across the Caribbean are among the highest in the entire world. We're not talking small numbers, we're talking about families where almost every household has someone managing blood sugar issues. And yet the conversation about, what is causing this keeps circling around the same obvious targets without ever actually getting to the real root cause of the problem. Right now, several Caribbean governments are responding to this crisis with something called a sugar sweetened beverage tax. Antigua's already put one in place. Jamaica, I just read in the paper, Jamaica just introduced theirs. And it's actually one of the more thoughtful approaches because instead of taxing based on the volume of a drink, they are taxing based on how many grams of sugar are actually in it. So that means that a highly sweetened drink is going to get taxed more heavily than one with less sugar. Now, on paper, that sounds like a smart move, right? And really, the intention is good, I have to say. Okay, the goal is to reduce diabetes and obesity by making people think twice before reaching for that bottle. But here is where it gets complicated. And here's where I think the policy, as well meaning as it is, it misses the real target. Think about what actually happens when you take a packaged sweet drink. Someone, they want something sweet. They don't suddenly lose the craving. They just find another way to satisfy it. And in the Caribbean, the other way is going to be right there in the kitchen: a bag of sugar, a pot on the stove. So you have your homemade ginger beer, sweetened to your own personal preference. You have homemade fruit punch as well, that has as much sugar as you want. You have your sorrel, your soursop, tamarind drink, a bush tea. All these are sweetened generously at home. So no tax is going to touch that. The person who is buying the sweetened beverage from the store, they might just shift to making their own at home with just as much sugar or even more. And the whole point of the tax gets completely bypassed. But wait, there's more. There's something even bigger that the tax is not addressing at all. And this is the part that I really need you to pay attention to for the moment. Now, when we talk about blood sugar, most people are going to immediately think about table sugar, the sweet things, candy, soft drinks, desserts. But here's a fact that absolutely changes everything. The majority of glucose in your bloodstream most likely is not coming from sugar, it's coming from starch. And starch does not taste sweet, okay? It doesn't give you that immediate signal that you're consuming something that is going to spike your glucose level. But when you eat starch, your body breaks it down completely into glucose because starch is a string of glucose molecules. So we're talking 100% conversion. So your white rice, your pasta, your noodles, your bread, baked wheat products like buns and pastries, fungi even. All these are starch heavy foods that flood your system with glucose just as powerfully as drinking something sweet, and sometimes even more so because of the quantities that people eat. Now, in the Caribbean, starch is the foundation of almost every meal. A plate of rice. I love my rice. Rice and peas with lunch. A big portion of fungi served alongside saltfish. A big loaf of shortbread and cheese in the morning. Dumplings. None of these things taste sweet, okay? None of them would ever be targeted by a sugar sweetened beverage tax, but they are all invisibly contributing to elevated blood sugar every single day. Now, let's talk about your nighttime drinking habits. Excuse me, because sleep comes into the equation in a very important way. Now, when you go to sleep, your body isn't just shutting down, it's actually doing critical maintenance work. So, your hormones are regulating, your cells are repairing and cleaning up themselves, and your blood sugar is supposed to stabilize nicely and stay within the nice, healthy range throughout the night. But If you consume something sweet or high in those fast digesting starches just before bedtime, your body has to manage all that glucose intake, that glucose spike, while at the same time trying to rest. So you're lying down, you're not moving, your muscles aren't pulling glucose out of your blood, the way they do when you're active. So that blood sugar then rises from your late night drinking. All right. And it stays high longer. Your body's going to pump out insulin to deal with it. And over time, this pattern, all right, night after night, contributes to insulin resistance, which is the start of type 2 diabetes. So that sweet bush tea, that cocoa, if people still drink cocoa, that glass of homemade fruit juice made with the generous amounts of sugar, when consumed right before sleep, these drinks are landing in your bloodstream at the worst possible time for you to handle them efficiently. Now, I want to be clear about something because I know that this is where someone is going to probably push back in the comments, okay? I'm not saying do not ever enjoy these drinks. I enjoy them sometimes, all right? I am not saying traditional Caribbean beverages are inherently bad. What I'm saying is that understanding exactly what these drinks do inside your body at night gives you power and real power. And that is something a tax can never give you. There's no power in a tax. Okay, the government is taking all the power from you. Now, this brings me to my core issue with the sugar sweetened beverage tax approach. If someone is genuinely addicted to sugar, and addiction is the right word here because sugar activates many of those same reward pathways in the brain as other addictive substances. So if they're addicted, taxing the product is not going to break the addiction. Think about this. Do we seriously believe that taxing alcohol has cured alcoholism? No. Has it stopped someone who is truly dependent on alcohol from finding a way to get it? Of course not. The craving is still there, the dependency is still there, and the tax just simply makes it more expensive for them to satisfy the craving. So that's not healing. Okay, that's just a financial inconvenience. Now, the same principle applies to sugar addiction and, well, by extension, starch addiction, which I would actually argue is more widespread and an under-recognized problem. All right, people are addicted to that feeling that starch and sugar give them, the comfort, the fullness, the familiar taste. I'm speaking from past experience, and you can't tax that away. You can't legislate someone out of a craving. Now, what actually works is understanding. I truly believe this. When somebody truly grasps what is happening in their body, when they can connect the dots between that late night sweetened drink and the blood sugar number their doctor shows them months later, when they understand that the plate of rice they had for dinner was converted entirely to glucose before they even fell asleep, then something shifts. Not because they're forced to change, but because they want to, because they understand why it matters. The Caribbean governments implement these taxes. They're trying, all right, they're trying to solve a real crisis. And I respect that. But the solution has to go deeper. It has to involve real nutritional education. It has to tell the truth about starch, not just sugar. It has to acknowledge that the addiction itself needs to be addressed, not just the product. So today, when you reach for that drink, just pause for a moment. Ask yourself what's actually in this. How much sugar? And when you sit down to eat, think about how much starch your meal contains and what is going to do, what is this going to do to your body, especially at bedtime when you're lying still for the next 8 hours. You don't have to give these things up tonight, but you owe yourself the truth about what they are doing because knowing is where the real change begins. Knowing. Okay? Thank you for watching and I'll see you on the next video.